Welcome to Scorched Earth and the general reading for this sign of Leo, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of August 2023. I hope you're well and happy birthday season to you. Before we begin, if the reading resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's the first link in the description box. The second link in the description box is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on Circle. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost. And hang out with a truly extraordinary group of people, and I don't say that lightly, they really are extraordinary. And we've got classes and all sorts of things up there, so if that's something that's of interest to you, please feel free to avail yourself of that link. Right, let's have a look and see what's going on for you, Leo. Can I have 3 cards for Leo, please? Oh, there's the first one, hopped out. Ace of Wands in your recent past. Let's just flip this around so you can see what I'm looking at. Current energy, please. We have the 9 of Wands for your current energy, and what's coming towards Leo for August, please. We have the Justice card. Interesting. We have the Chariot card at the bottom of the deck, and I like this very much for you, Leo, because it really does seem like all systems are go. Whatever that means to you, whatever it is that you've been working on this year, and I want to say this year specifically, rather than just the last couple of months or anything like that. Now, to be clear, this doesn't need to be some sort of project or anything like that. It can be about simply the way that you choose to live your life, because yeah, I'm cutting the deck and I've got the Emperor in the centre here. It does seem for most of you that there has been some sort of overhaul of your energy that's happened this year. And it's been about the kind of slightly finicky act of having to gently remove all the obstacles out of your way. It's like you know where you want to go, you know the direction of travel that you're headed in, but there have been obstructions, there have been blockages, there have been obstacles. Excuse me. And, you know, maybe we've had to learn to be a little bit patient in the removal of these. And like I said, it doesn't have to be about a tangible outcome that you're looking for. It can be about the way that you are experiencing your own existence. And I was like, well, maybe I'm a little bit sick of feeling cantankerous about this, or, you know, something about that. You know, there's a deep desire to move into a more fulfilling kind of life, and whatever changes it is that you've needed to make in order to do that, I think that there's a very clear indication that they are really, as ever, sitting within you rather than experiences outside of you. Now, I want to get some clarifiers out before I say any more, so let's do that. Tell me about the Ace of Wands, please. Thank you. We have the 4 of Swords, exactly what I was talking about. Lovely. And we've got the 2 of Wands in reverse and the 4 of Wands in reverse. Interesting. Tell me about the 9 of Wands, please. Oh, there it is, the 9 of Cups. Love it. And we've got the Devil, Capricorn energy. Tell me about Justice. We have the 5 of Wands. And we have the Lovers card with the Fool at the bottom of the deck. Now, let me spread these out a little bit so that my OCD horror of the fact that they're not straight gets in some ways at least mildly placated. It's never going to be proper. There we go. So you can get a good view at what's going on here. There's quite a bit of major arcana on the table, but it's subtle. And this is the interesting thing about that, right? We've got the Devil down here, we've got the Lovers down here, and that's interesting in and of itself. But we have the Chariot here and we have the Fool here. Now, these are the shadow cards. These are the ones that provide an underlying theme for the energies that we see on the table here. It's almost like you need to interpret what is on the table in light of what is showing up here. And it isn't necessarily obvious. Sometimes it can be, like I said, quite discreet. It can be what is happening underneath the surface. So the Chariot card is the card of Cancer. And on the face of it, it deals with determination, success. Victory is a big theme in this card. But that doesn't necessarily mean the achievement thereof. It can speak about the way that we're kind of realigning ourselves to go after future success, future victory, all of those kind of things. What I was saying before about the removal of obstacles from your path. And then we have the Fool. Now, I have to say there's a great deal more going on with the Chariot card than I've just mentioned there, but we'll just stick with that for now. The Fool is the point of initiation into a new cycle. You know, the Fool is it's somewhat of a blessed card, actually, and which is not to say it doesn't have negative connotations. It can talk about naivety and innocence that is taken to, you know, somewhat of a dangerous degree, like a foolish behaviour, literally. But there's an enduring truth, I think, that persists with the Fool, beg your pardon, and it is that of trust and faith in wherever life happens to be taking you and whatever experiences you happen to be being exposed to. Like I said, it's the beginning of a cycle. It's, you know, it's Aries as a sign, but it's zero. It is the pure potential of what could be. So we have you gearing up for the pure potential of what could be in a readiness to explore it. It feels to me like August, just to skip ahead for a second here, August is almost like a grand finale, if I can put it that way, to whatever cycle you happen to have found yourself in at the moment, which is coming, I think, to completion, getting you ready to start anew, start afresh. So, when we come back here to your recent past, we've got the Ace of Wands, and I love that. I love that for fire signs. Well, I love it for everyone, but I particularly love it for fire signs because there's a reignition of something. The one suit for me speaks about experience, right? What it is that you are living in some way or another. Whereas, you know, the cups would talk about emotions and things like that. It's your vital force. It's the energy that flows through you. It's the passion and creativity that comes very naturally from someone who is very set on living their best life, right? So when the aces come along, it's a reignition of that. I don't think it's like a because it's something that is so enduring. I'm going to use that word again. That's coming up a lot here for you, Leo. There's something so enduring about that. Now, sometimes it falters, and sometimes it flickers, and sometimes it goes down to something that is barely smouldering. But it always retains its ability to spring forth, spring anew. And something in your recent past seems to have reignited your passion for life, your passion for what it is that you are planning to do at this time, you know? I think, just speaking from personal perspective, I've been reflecting on this a little bit in the last week. I spent most of my 2020, 21, and some of 2022 in quite a black-pilled state about the state of the world. And I have found myself this year entering into an entirely different mindset, and one that is characterized by an excitement about what the future holds, rather than a terror of everything kind of falling away. And it's interesting that Four of Swords should have come up with it, because for me that card speaks about a mental peace. It's sometimes my meditation card, and you know, if you're not meditating, you absolutely should be. But because it follows on from the Three of Swords, it's that taking a step back from things, right? It's there's something shielding and protective about not being balls deep in the things that worry you, the things that upset you. And it's not because you're closing your eyes and pretending that these things aren't happening. It's being like, these things are happening. Am I going to allow it to rule my life, or am I going to take charge of it? And think back to the Emperor that was just right in the middle of the deck when I split it there. And we can see how this would feed in really beautifully to the energy that we see in the Chariot and in the Fool too. It's like the passions come back, the excitements come back. You know, I always think that the One suit talk about the things that make your blood run hot, for good or ill, the things that make your blood run hot. But when it's complemented by this kind of mental peace that we're talking about here with the Four of Swords, objectivity, stepping back, not being quite a part of all of the drama, and focusing instead in channeling our own fire towards something that really gets us excited. I mean, that's a powerful combination right there. And then we have this Two of Wands and this Four of Wands. Now, that's really quite interesting. Obviously, we've got two more Wands cards there. So, you know, we're still very much in the element of fire. Yeah, I'm going to go over this triple goddess here. If I can pick the deck up, which I can't. The Two of Wands talks about a crossroads moment, right? Or ultimately, that's what it's talking about. And often we interpret that as you know, this decision that takes us in this direction, or that decision that takes us over there, somewhere, you know, 180 degrees away from the other possibility. But I've come to see it recently very much more in speaking to those things that those decisions that we make 300 times a day without even realizing that we're doing them. You know? The Four of Wands, which is another Aries card that speaks about, you know, the creation of a new foundation and whatnot. If these two cards were in the upright, we can say you're making some really big decisions about the kind of foundation that you want for yourself. But actually, I feel like there's a winding down energy here on what the Four of Wands has represented to you up until this point. Now, we talk about the Four of Wands in terms of, you know, joy and happiness and that abstract feeling of home that does not come from the four walls. It's represented by the security of the people, or even just the energetic space that we find ourselves sitting in. So, for example, this is an example I use a lot, right? If something truly magnificent were to happen, you know, something that really, really excited you, who would be the handful of people that you would personally contact to share that news with, right? That's Four of Wands energy right there. But also on the other side of it, you know, if something really fucking dreadful happened, who would it be that you would turn to for support and nourishment at this time? Right? That's Four of Wands too. It's that closeness of the bond. Tell me about Two of Wands, please. Thank you. Yeah. So what we've got here is this gentle winding down. Maybe it's not so gentle, actually. This turning away from any aspect of what has been part, up until now, has been part of your Four of Wands experience, right? For, you know, whether it's good times or bad times. And beginning the act of cutting those things out. Now, whether this is people, whether this is situations, whether you're turning away from a job that you've been in or whatever, I think there's a recognition of how much you have starved yourself of what it is that you actually need. And as a Leo, like, well, right, everybody generally has a certain hierarchy of needs. We talk about that a lot. So, you know, shelter and food is at the bottom, and then it's working its way up to, you know, spiritual and psychological balance and all that sort of stuff up there. Actually, I was struggling to remember what it is that sits at the top, right? But this recognition that maybe for a lot of us, we've been in a peculiar kind of survival mode that we hadn't even recognized at the point. And it is only with the introduction of the Ace of Wands, right, this renewed vigor for something, this reignition of passion for a new direction that is totally open to you if you want to take it, has been profound. And it's allowing you to do what the Queen of Swords does, which is just actually cut things out quite a lot. And it's, like I said, it's not necessarily about cutting out people or cutting out jobs or any of those sorts of things. It's a very subtle internal working, whereby we stop taking quite so much interest in what other people think about what it is that we're doing. I mean, here, what we're talking about is a pursuit of authenticity, actually, Leo. So it could be that you've been having some, some minor fracas with people over things. But I think that the more important aspect of this is where you're just recognizing where certain energies are just not in alignment with where you want to go, right? What represents victory and success, your direction of travel. And so, as we were talking, I don't even know if it was a couple of months ago or something, about the act of taking these obstacles out of the fucking way, right? It's slow, it's laborious, it's frankly fucking boring, but we're doing it anyway. We're starting to see how, well, maybe you've just been getting some really subtle insights into how you've ended up the way that you have. Like, I had one myself yesterday, and it just hit me like a bolt out of the blue, and it was so subtle, and yet it had such an effect on me for my entire life that I'm actually still sitting with it now. Like, how far does this go? What does this mean? And it's almost like allowing it to wind down. I always think with this particular version of the Queen of Swords, we've got a revelation of truth. You notice here, this little pink thing, I don't know if the camera is picking it up very well, it's a mask. And it's been taken off and dropped on the floor. And the Queen of Swords is here, and she's showing you who she is, truly. Right? She's holding up this sword of truth, but here is her face, and you can see who she is. I think anything other than an authentic life is not good enough for you anymore, Leo. And I think the extent to which what you thought had passed for it now no longer does. We're talking about a shift that's happened within you. And it's interesting that we should find the Temperance card sitting at the bottom of the deck here. Because whether you realise it or not, this subtle shift, this subtle healing that's gone on, by way, I guess, of your attention on something that really lights you up, is not only helping with the removal of the obstacles from where you want to go, but I think it's giving a deeper insight into what it is that you actually want for the rest of your days, however long they may be, in this particular incarnation. One of the other meanings of the Chariot, and it's one that I consider to be particularly significant always, is that of the self, of knowledge of self. This is a card for me of shadow work. I've had lots of people tell me that it's not a card of shadow work, and okay, for you perhaps not, but for me it has that very distinct meaning of shadow work, and I have reasons for that. I'll not get into them now. But I guess you could essentially boil it down to the balancing of polarities, and what a very necessary endeavour that is in order for us to actually manage to go in a fucking straight line, or even if we're not trying to go in a straight line, at least head towards where it is that we want to go, without introducing those mechanisms that are almost guaranteed to throw us off course. I'm talking about self-sabotage and things like that, right? When we realise that the origin of all of these behaviours is within us, and that we all have the capacity to do it, and we've probably done it to a far greater extent than any of us would be comfortable admitting, it's half of the battle. It's in that discomfort of admission to oneself that we have kept ourselves out of alignment, we have kept ourselves imbalanced. That we come to a realisation that there's an incredible power in that, because we have the ability then to write it. In fact, we are the only people who have the ability to write it. all three cards that indicate balance in the major arcana are revealing themselves here. At this point, we have the Temperance card, we have the Justice card, and we have the Chariot. There's one other that I would look for, it's the Six of Pentacles, that has not shown its face, but that's fine, because I think what's going on here is at a far more profound level than just, you know, us consciously thinking about how we will balance stuff. You know, when we're talking about this level of internal shift, it's opening up a whole new world of possibility to us. And perhaps in the first instance, all we ever really needed to do was understand that we are never stuck, never trapped, and that all possibilities remain open to us at all times. And allow ourselves to lean into that. You know, sometimes the possibility of things being wonderful can be absolutely fucking terrifying. I think, you know, Leo had a bit of a rough ride as a sign, particularly since 2017, and I'm going to hold my hand up with that one, you know, and tell you, to the minute, when my life took a very difficult turn, and it was literally as the energy was within, I don't know, I think it was like 2 hours of a major eclipse in Leo. And it started a whole cycle, 18 months, which I now realise was actually quite a significant time frame. Where the process of beginning to recognise those behaviours in me started. And this fundamental shift that has gone on within your energy, I do believe strongly, is bringing the power back to you. It's allowing you to channel the energy of the Ace of Wands. And it doesn't really matter how long this is taking. You know, I mentioned patience right at the beginning of the reading, and I think that that's probably a strong one. But my understanding of patience, up until very, very recently, probably the last year or so, where it says, here's something that I want yesterday, because that's how I work, because I'm a Leo, I'm very impatient. And patience was finding a way of stuffing it into a box, any feelings that I had about that, and forgetting about it until such time as it came to fruition. That was my understanding of patience. That's how I dealt with it. That's how I exercised it. And to be fair, my Libra children have taught me an awful lot about patience. I'm a Pisces, actually, true too. Yeah, because I'm considerably more patient now than I was 20 years ago. Anyway, I'm not even sure if patience is the right word, because like I said, that's kind of the association with that. It's been replaced with a kind of peace. And I don't know if this is the peace that comes from knowing that your soul will endure no matter what, endure again. And everything will happen when it happens, like a sort of acceptance of that. Or whether it's just come from this really deep internal place of knowing yourself, Leo. Yeah, knowing what happens when you rush things. And knowing what's going on beneath the surface when you are trying to rush things. You know, this energy of being very present is strong with all of the Wands cards on the table. And we have to be careful, you know, we have to make sure that we're balancing those out with the other elements, because anything that is all fire has the capacity to be incredibly destructive. But again, we need to hold it all in balance. But I feel like the awareness of this has become so much more important to you than it ever has been before. And there's such resolve not to have it incapacitate you any further, that it cannot help but bring in space. The space to contemplate this, the space for passion and creativity to be reignited, You know, there've been some niggles along the way, but we saw that happening months ago. We knew there were going to be niggles on the path. There always are. But it's the way that you're approaching those niggles now. I find it quite interesting that this fight or flight response that a lot of we Leos are, well, perhaps everybody is affected by, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. Doesn't seem to be kicking in the same way anymore. And it's not because towers don't happen, because absolutely they do, and I'm sure that they have for some of you this year. You know, I've had a couple myself. It's more about the way that we're responding to them. It's a much more accepting, much more peaceful, much more gentle energy. It's characterized much more by the Four of Swords than it is by any feelings of agitation. It's that bringing back to the self every single time. And it's not like drifting into solipsism, and please don't feel that that's what I'm talking about here. I do very much believe that we create our own reality, but I think my belief in the collective unconscious stops me from getting solipsistic about shit. Anyway, when we move into your current energy, we have the Nine of Wands with the Nine of Cups and the Devil, and I actually really like this combination for you. Right? So the Moon in Sagittarius can't help but talk to me about personal philosophy. What is your personal philosophy? And further than that, what is the extent to which you live that? Because it's one thing to say that this is what you believe, but it's quite another to put it into action. I can think of a number of situations off the top of my head, just from my own life, where I kind of observed that in other people and gone, but that doesn't make sense. I might as well just being super autistic about it, right? But you know, like, your reaction does not tally with what you said you believed. You know, why are you being like that? But then I can see it in myself too. And we have these other meanings of you know, resilience, and we're talking about boundaries a lot when we get the Nine of Wands. But the extent to which your personal philosophy, excuse me, stomach's gurgling, has dictated your experience of happiness and contentment, and the way that it has allowed you to manage your emotions or be managed by your emotions. Because we do have the Devil there. You know, the Devil represents all those things that are toxic: codependency, fear, abuse, dependencies of any sort, you know, whether that's on, you know, drink or drugs or whatever. But there's a certain grounded energy to the Devil, in so much as, you know, the entire material realm is under the purview of the Devil. And so where we make things tangible, where we make things solid, there is the energy of the Devil. Because no card in the tarot is all good or all bad. There are, you know, sides of it to both. And I feel like there's an examination of this balance between, where have I allowed things to ground? Where have I allowed things to be created? You know, to have a form that can be perceived by other people, because that's what the Devil says to me. Versus the fear, the dependency, you know, the emotional instability, any of these things that we've allowed to take root and dictate what our view of reality is, and then by extension what our personal philosophy is in the way that we move around in that state. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Tell me about this Nine of Cups, please. Knight of Pentacles. When the Knight of Pentacles appears, we are always talking about what it is that has value and how we can take that thing and treat it as the precious thing that it is, right? So we move from this Five of Pentacles, where we're completely, you know, completely abandoning our basic needs, having actually probably no awareness of what our basic needs really are, rather than what we thought they were. coming to a place where we do understand what is important. This singular pentacle and everything that it represents. I mean, for me, it's about energetic investment, because the pentacles are energetic currency. If you can spend it, if you can invest it, then it's a pentacle. So your time, your care, your effort, your money, your love, your energy generally, all of those things. And we see this really subtle interplay between what is your philosophy based on what it is that you think life should be, what it's comprised of, even your influence on all of that, and how that flows down to how you manage your emotions, or whether they manage you, and what it is that you allow to take root in your reality. Come back here. And we've got the Emperor showing up again. I knew he would show up again. It was just too pointed when he appeared in the thing. Yeah. I'm not going to take those two cards because they just slid out to the right, and I don't take those. Can we see what's going on here? The Emperor represents the active control that we take over, well, in this instance, ourselves, because it's the nines, and the nines is all about the personal experience of the individual. He's about planning and strategy, and that dovetails very neatly with the other cards that we've got going on here about new starts and initiation and all that kind of thing. But rather than trying to control an environment, rather than trying to control people or circumstances, we keep coming back to this essential point of it is control of self. And that control of self isn't just about being super disciplined about things, although that can help, as long as it's not too rigid and inflexible. It's about understanding where our seat of control lies, and to what extent what has rooted is a reflection of the way that we see how the world works, right? I've been trotting this quote out for a week solid now, and it's the one by Roald Dahl. You know, those who never look for magic will never find it. And I was flipping this around on Monday. I had a day out with a friend of mine, which was just fucking magic from start to finish. It was insane. We were wandering around, and the synchronicities for both of us collectively were just off the fucking charts. You know, there'd be a sign over here, and there were literally the name of a building over here, and it's the thing that we're literally talking about right now, and there it is. You know, it was magic the whole day. The pair of us were actively looking for magic, and that's what we found. And on days like those, it's really difficult to look at life and boil it down to paying bills, working, retiring, dying. There's so much more going on. And I think if you are actively looking for the magic in your life, and I do think that you are, Leo, the channel that you've opened up here in looking for the magic, and fire I think is about as fucking real as it gets, energetically speaking. Then what we get by accident is insight into feelings and thought patterns and all that sort of thing that are incongruent with looking for magic. And what you've been experiencing recently is an opportunity to pick up those obstructions and go, you are incongruent to my magical life, fuck off. And it's like I said, it's not people, it's not situations, it's none of those things. It's what's going on in here with you. How your personal philosophy is changing, how you are seeing reality change. And as a result, the level of control that you have over your emotions and being a very present witness to what it is that has rooted, and whether that's what it is that you want. Because this death card here, that's what it is, death, Scorpio, is saying that there's a transformation going on here, and the transformation is of self. And the reason why this is so completely, profoundly critical to any kind of changes that you want to make can just be boiled down in that, the works of Hermes Trismegistus, right? Like, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. Like, the microcosm of your existence, of your experience of your existence, is what will be reflected back out to you in the macrocosm of your everyday life. And I think that this essential, salient point is the one that is really starting to drip through for you now. And so we move into August. Now, I'm going to deal with the really obvious interpretations first, and that is, if any of you are dealing with some sort of court case, any sort of dealings with the law at all, this actually augurs fairly well. Because we have an upright justice, and justice is Libra, and deals with all things to do with law, of the black letter type, contract law, that sort of stuff, right? Your dealings with the legal system. And we also have the Five of Wands here, right? So you are showing up. This is a Leo card. You are showing up and you are ready to fight your corner, and that's incredibly important. Particularly if it has any kind of influence on some sort of thing that you're trying to manifest for yourself. I mean, that's obvious, and it does look like it will be successful if that's what the case is. I would caution against being combative, because again, there's an incongruence with the kind of magical life that you are trying to live here. I think it's simply that you must show up, Leo, right? That's it. You got to show up, and you've got to be authentically you, but don't fall into combative behaviors or aggression, right? And we haven't even mentioned the shifting of the nodes. We probably should mention that. They're moving from North Node and South Node are moving from North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio, to North Node in Aries and South Node in Libra. Now, what's interesting about that is that we're shifting towards this karmic energy of not necessarily differentiating yourself from the herd, like extracting yourself from the collective or anything, being like, fuck you, I'm going to do my own thing. Although in its lower manifestation, it could turn out like that. It's about the simple awareness of I am, the significance and the importance of the I am. It's about being courageous. It's about being brave. It's about being assertive. It's about being a leader. But we're not looking to lead other people for the sake of leading, and that can be a lower vibration Aries trait sometimes. Well, lower vibration is probably not really fair. But nevertheless, I digress. It's more about being a leader to yourself. Aries card of the Emperor, right? Not allowing yourself to stay in patterns of complacency where you're looking for anybody else to take the authority. You know, it's about you being your own personal authority. The reason that I bring this in here as important is because there could well be an increase in the level of aggression that everybody exhibits as they start to try and individuate away from collectivist thinking and people-pleasing behaviours and all those sorts of things. Until it equals out and it levels out, that could come across as quite aggressive. And so I would caution against you being too combative in the month of August. But if you don't have any legal situation going on, then what we have here is a balancing, which could be a trifle challenging for you in August. It's funny in how many times the universe kind of throws experiences at you after you've worked something out. Right? When you've worked something out and you feel it in your core, quite often you will have another situation of a similar sort of thing show up. And I would resist calling it a test, but maybe that's what it is. And it's like, okay, well, you said you've understood, you said you've learned, here's this situation again. How are you going to respond to it? And if you haven't learned the lesson right at your core, then it will play out exactly the way that it has done every time before. If you have, you're being gifted an opportunity to choose to do things differently. And at that point, the cycle is broken. We don't need to experience that same fucking lesson wearing different clothes every time. Like we've got it, we've understood, and we're going to change. We're going to do things differently. The Five of Wands isn't all about, being at war. It's actually very difficult to tell what's going on in this card, other than there's a bit of, maybe there's a bit of horseplay going on here. Maybe there's a bit of play fighting. Maybe there's a bit of sparring. Who knows? It seems unlikely that these young people would be going to war dressed in tunics like that, but who knows? Possibly. Mentioned a few times how the 5 and 6 of Wands have seemed to have woven together almost, to need to be, the existence of one is almost dependent on the other. This came from a conversation that I had with my mentor, actually. And I feel with the 5 of Wands, it's telling you to keep your eyes on the prize, whatever it is. I mean, this talks about strife, it talks about struggle, right? It's Saturn and Leo, so there's always that kind of testing feel to it. Like, do it again, do it better, do it with more integrity. Show that you have learned what it was that you were supposed to be picking up at this point, right? Show us. And in the doing of that, then the next Leo card, which is the 6 of Wands, that speaks about success and victory and all of those kind of things, makes its arrival. Can we all just take a moment to just fucking love tarot and everything that it is? Because that's the 6 of Wands there. I mean, this month is showing you a way to break through, Leo. And should you break through, the most unbelievable experiences are available to you. Whenever the Justice card shows up, we do have notions of karma at play, and the nodes of the moon are extremely karmic. That shift is going to be shuffling everyone around. It's a very karmic time, and particularly in the first few degrees of this transit, there's the kind of shocking shake-up that tends to happen before we all settle down into it over the course of the next 18 months. I'm pretty sure I said something about button pushers in your last reading. Beware the button pushers. The people who were looking to get some sort of rise out of you, some sort of response. And in the past, you'd have been like, it might have been that you knew what they were doing, or it didn't, but you'd have bitten every single time. And these cards are showing you the way through. Like, the route to your victory, Leo, is not in fighting for the sake of it. It's not about being in fight or flight mode at all, actually. It's something much more peaceful, much more spiritually evolved, and something that is much more loving of self, much more caring of self. Cancer season the advice for Cancer season was take care of yourself, nurture yourself, and allow yourself to release whatever it is that you've been feeling. And it might have had some spontaneous tears that have come from nowhere. It's happened to me once. I don't fucking cry. Not because I'm, ideologically opposed to crying. It's just not something that I particularly do. But I did, briefly. And then I was really surprised and I was like, what the fuck? Then my partner was looking at me like, what the fuck? And I was like, it's Cancer season, isn't it? And he was like, fair, okay, right. Something was being let out there, and that was okay. It was cool. If you're dealing with people and there's something that's been a bit vexatious about the way that you're dealing with people, it's always holding up a mirror, Leo. It's showing you where there's something here that's kind of being stirred up in you that isn't quite settled. And August is all about settling that and moving very peacefully through to success. You have the struggle and you have the victory, and they're happening relatively simultaneously, certainly in the month of August for you. And like I said, this doesn't need to be some great big victorious court case that you win. It can be about that subtle shift where someone who has been able to press your buttons for the longest time starts slamming away like whack-a-mole, and there's nothing, there's no response. Because the reason that they were able to do that comes back to here. Not understanding what your own basic needs were. And now you do. Now you see how you have abandoned them at times. And it's very subtle. It's very subtle, this, Leo. That's one of the things that I really, really like about this. It's not all, bombs and explosion and drama. It's this gentle self-knowledge. Fuck off. That's my phone going nuts there. The more peaceful hold you can have on yourself, the more loving, forgiving, caring generally you can be for yourself in August. And perhaps to other people too, possibly. The more gracefully you are swept along to what success actually is representing for you here. This is what I like about this. There's no fireworks, there's no tower, there's no huge, external dramatic circumstances. There's just a peaceful knowing of self. And something that has been discordant somewhere in your life, something that has been representing somewhat of an obstacle or a drama or a block or something, it's melting away in the face of this gentle, forgiving, compassionate energy that you are holding towards yourself. And when we talk about transformation, people feel like, well, sometimes transformations can be really fucking messy. Especially things like spiritual awakenings and that, I think it's all like unicorns and butterflies, and it's not. Sometimes it's raw. It's like literally wet because it's just that fucking raw, and it's painful and it hurts, and you just don't know what to fucking do with it. You've got to find a way to put all of this information in the right place in your head. Your whole view of reality alters. But sometimes a transformation can be a subtle shift. Just a little change of perspective that allows you to sit in your skin a little more easily than you have done before. And this seems to be particularly apparent when you are up against people who are pushing your buttons or perhaps being combative and aggressive. It's almost like you can allow yourself to glide through your birthday month here, Leo. So long as you hold on to faith and so long as you hold on to trust, holding on to your own personal stability, that comes from in here, not out here. The Lovers. Two of Pentacles. Shit, that's another card that speaks about balance right there. Six of Pentacles and Two of Pentacles. We've got the Justice card arriving at the bottom of the deck again. Right? It's the balance. It's bringing these things into a state of equilibrium. It is bringing you into a state of equilibrium. Two of Pentacles is you doing your bit. To say, do you think the Two of Pentacles is the card that varies the most in between all tarot decks? You can see that one there. She looks really happy. Do you know what's really interesting? I noticed this once and I couldn't unsee it once I'd seen it. Look at the shadow in the background. I think the shadow looks a little bit like a devil. It's got horns on the head and everything. And in this card particularly, there is a meeting of shadow and consciousness. And it's the joy of authenticity. It's the joy of owning everything that you are. And so because the Two of Pentacles follows on from the Ace, we have also a sense of taking something that has been, you know, a point of attention for you. And I do think that the Ace of Pentacles represents that point of attention where you really focus on something. And the Two is where you start feeling it internally. It allows you to juggle things around, right? Nothing is too fixed. Nothing is too stagnant here. It just flows. And where this is seen with reference to the Lovers, conscious co-creation, right? Union, harmony. You know, these two cards sit at opposite ends of the scale, but so too, I mean, we haven't even got into the Devil and the Lovers. Now, some of you might have heard me say in the past that these are the same card, and I just want to take a second to look at the structure of those cards. I mean, they're structured identically, but there are subtle differences within the cards. In the Devil, the people are chained. In the Lovers card, they are not, right? What we've got is a representation of free will here, but the free will that is exercised from a good place, a healthy place. And then we've got this, you know, this restriction and being trapped here by the Devil. But you'll notice that these chains are really rather loose around their neck. Like, they can take them off, pull them away at any time that they please. Like, they choose their own captivity. It's another representation of the idea that the Devil has no power of his own. It's only what you allow him. So they don't go anywhere because they don't think they can go anywhere. Right? They feel the chain around their neck and they're like, oh, I'm stuck, I'm trapped, I can't do anything. And it's like, well, actually just a little shift of perspective to go, do you know, this chain's really loose, I'm just going to take it off my head and I'm going to fuck off over there where it is nice. I'm going, maybe just pluck an apple off a tree or something like that. They're two sides of the same coin. But this is coming from a place of fear, and this is coming from a place of very healthy free will. And this is where you've come to, Leo. And we have the King of Pentacles. King of Pentacles is delayed gratification, and so we can work into that the idea of patience. You have to be patient. You have to allow things to grow. And it feeds back into this idea that you've just been patiently allowing this to grow within you. And perhaps you've seen it with, you know, wither and contract in other people and in other situations. Not that it actually is really relevant to you at this point anyway, because it's like what's going on with you is far more important. But it feels like justice will be done, Leo, whatever that means to you. And like I said, that doesn't need to be a court case being heard in your favour. It doesn't need to be somebody did you wrong, getting a massive karmic slap. I think we've really moved beyond that. Justice being done is equilibrium being achieved. It's the space being cleared for you to get excited about stuff. It's the ability to be truly authentic, which is what the Aries North Node is going to want you to be. and be able to really lean into that. All right, Leo, I'm going to leave it there because I've been prattling on for ages. I wanted these readings in August to be shorter, but as usual, completely sucking at that. So thank you for sticking with me as long as you have, if you have done so. If you would like to come over and join me for the extended, you're also very, very welcome to do that. You can join me over at Vimeo, or you can join Circle. It's entirely up to you. We're going to dig into August specifically. I was seeing the build up. We know what's going on here. I want to look more deeply into this. So if you want to come along for that, you're absolutely welcome to do so. If not, that's absolutely fine. But I really would emphasize allowing yourself to feel into the shifts that are happening for you here. Because I think that the more you can feel into them and the more that you can settle into them, the greater the extent that things will change around you. As above, so below, right? It's just there. It's a thing. It looks like August is going to be a really good month for you. Maybe with the odd hiccup here and there, but certainly nothing that isn't well within your capabilities to deal with, Leo. And I feel like there's something almost elevating in that. It's almost like the more you are presented with these little niggles, these little challenges, so the feeling of that absolutely intensifies, which kind of makes it a win-win situation, whichever way you look at it, Leo. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.